For those of you who aren't aware, the founder of the Conway Scenic Railroad, Dwight Smith, passed away recently. He was 100 years old, so he lived a very long life. But our thoughts from the club are with his family at this time. And without further ado, we are going to get the August membership meeting going. So this month we have a presentation by Russ Lanoie. Did I pronounce that right?
Well, it depends on what part of Maine you're from.
Okay. Uh, I'm not from up north, so I don't have the kind of.
Then I'll let you get away with it.
All right, sounds good. So the write-up he gave us was because I had about the only small skid steer loader, I think a Bobcat, but this new one was a case that could get underneath a building. Dwight Smith hired me to dig out the old brick inside the outhouse under the North Conway train station in the spring of 1974. Once I got the hole dug and the corner of the building supported on a 90-ton railroad jack, Dwight asked if I could build a foundation. After that was done, Emmons Lancaster asked if I could build new platforms around the building, and after that, and so on until August when my old dry cleaner blower helped start the fire in the boiler of the old 47, now known as 7470. And the Conway Scenic Railroad came to life. I have photos and stories about that spring and summer that explain why I became an avid railroad supporter and had Walter Lancaster work with me for the next 14 years and beyond. So without further ado, Russ, take it away.
I'm wondering how many of you knew Emmons.
I knew him.
What's that?
I knew him.
You knew him? Well,
I did.
if you knew him at all, it'd be hard to forget. We even squared ends with him. And Walter's mother grew up right in our town here. So Walter worked for me for quite a while. We didn't meet at the station. We met shortly thereafter, and he came to work for me in 1976. Okay, so you've had the description of how I got involved. I was plowing Dwight's driveway right here in Conway Village, and when he found out I had a little machine, and he was getting ready to bring the depot back to life, he hired me to dig out the old brick outhouse, let's call it, in the corner of the building, and you'll see what happened to the bricks a little later. This is what was nailed on the side of the building back then, 1973, 74, when we started out. And these are some of the articles from our local papers talking about the station being rebuilt. It was kind of exciting because it definitely was a landmark, or if not the landmark for North Conway, and it was pretty bad disrepair, needed a whole lot, which Dwight brought about. So this is what I had for equipment. That skid steer you see up on the left with the rock in it. That's what I used to dig out under the building. It was the first skid steer in the valley that was used for commercial construction. Did a lot of work with it. Goal of the project was to remove the brick shit house under the corner of the building, make room for modern plumbing in the newly renovated station. I anticipated the project to last about 3 days. Was I ever wrong? This is where that brick structure was under the northeast corner of the building. That's a 90-ton railroad jack. There were a couple of them. That's what we used to hold the building up. Very effective, very heavy if you never had an opportunity to use one. Then Dwight asked if I could construct a foundation now that we had the hole dug. I had recently heard of a new system for a surface coating for concrete blocks that eliminated the need to mortar the blocks and make it possible to shift the weight of the building directly onto the blocks once they were stacked. The surface coat would be at least as strong, if not stronger, than the traditional method of mortaring each block together, and allowed the mortar to set before the next block would be dried, or could be placed above. I actually took a couple of blocks and stuck them together, let them cure, and then dropped them onto the rails. I think the blocks crushed before the bond did. So this is what we did. That's under the corner of the building. Fiberglass block bond. So once we had the foundation under construction, Emmons, who was on board pretty regularly by this time, wanted to know if I could put a platform around the station because there was virtually nothing there. Um, and he knew what was necessary. So he started digging. Now we got a chance to dig all around the building, found a few gems here and there. That's the southeast corner of the building, closest to the golf course. Um, Installed stormwater drains. I took a look at them today. I don't know whether they go anymore. It's been 51 years, but there's downspouts. You can see the downspouts coming down, and we carried that water across to somewheres, maybe to daylight, maybe to a dry well. I don't remember. A lot of digging all the way around. It was quite a mess most of the summer. We had a surprise in the front of the building. Nobody, I don't think, in recent history ever knew this existed. Not a couple of slides away. There was a cobblestone gutter, probably back from 1874 when the building was built. Coincidentally, there's a quarry, and if any of you have heard of the Tin Mountain Conservation Center, which is our local conservation group, about a mile from what would have been well, still is the Conway train station. There was a B&M quarry that quarried cobblestones, and my guess is that those are probably where the cobblestones came from for this gutter in front of the station. It had been filled with winter sand, had probably 6 inches of winter sand on it, so nobody had seen it in probably 50 years. We uncovered that, and I've been told that maybe some of those cobblestones now are up at Russ's house when he owned the railroad. So it's all asphalt now, unfortunately, not nearly as attractive. This, if I think that's my drawing there, is the cobblestones. This one, however, this one is Emmons' layout for the pressure treated ties, bridge timbers, and all that stuff that they had amassed over recent months and years to build a platform around the building. Those are the timbers there. This actually has Dwight's signature on the bottom. This was his layout for the original platform. Now those platforms extend much, much longer. This is all we had when the station opened up in August of 1970. Yeah, 74. Yeah, 74. It's 51 years now. This is what the platform looked like. It's still in reasonably good shape, but it's a whole lot bigger now, and there's a whole lot more trains. There's the cobblestones. That was probably back from when this was built. Probably it had a lot to do with the fact that most of the transportation at that time was horses, and this was probably easier to clean up than the sand. Now this came around about the time we were doing the work, and I'm not sure who is in the picture there. Somebody seems to think is one of Dwight's sons, but and I never saw that. I don't think I ever saw that running, but it's probably in the museum up there somewhere. Now this is when things got interesting for me. One day, as we were wrapping up the work for the day, I had a brainstorm to try and fit a set of flange wheels to my skid steer because my tractor was exactly the right wheelbase to fit on top of the rails, but it was a little difficult to keep it there. So I found a pair of spare flange wheels and mounted them to the backhoe mounts of my tractor, and by dropping the loader down onto the axle, I could shift the front wheels weight right onto the rails, and I got to be the very first piece of rolling stock until 47 came to life later that summer. So anytime anything needed to be moved on the rails, my skid steer provided the locomotion. We moved boxcars. We moved We've moved cabooses down, as you see in a minute. I think the original gondola cars were box cars that they pretty well gutted and opened up the sides. Far cry from what the pristine cars that they have now, like the Emma, the Gertrude Emma, and all of those dining cars. Nothing like that. This is my favorite photo from that whole situation. That is Dwight operating the brake. We don't know who it was on the roof, but the job of the person on the roof was to tell us when we were getting close to Route 16, so I didn't just push that caboose out to the middle of Route 16. There was not quite as much traffic in 1974, but still it was a pretty busy road. So this is how we move stuff. My little skid steer. That was the approach to Route 16. There you can just about see the flange wheels on it there. We moved a lot of stuff around. They needed coal, so I got to bring the first load of coal down in, and I think it was 70 tons net. Now, after pushing 70 tons net with a machine that weighs about 2.5 tons, it's hard not to become a supporter of rail transportation. No rolling friction like there is on rubber. Now, the next big project was I'm not sure what the politics was of this, but Dwight was able to get all of the ties from a siding up in Intervale, close to where the railroad now crosses Intervale Crossroad. So we spent many days up there ripping up ties, and I had a set of forks for the skid steer, so I'd rip them up and I'd load them onto a larger machine, and he set them on the flatbed rail cars, and we brought them down into North Conway. There were quite a pile of them. Some of them were junk, some of them were relay quality. So that gave them something to work with. As again, this whole project was pretty much on a shoestring towards the end of this point, getting ready to open up. Dwight had spent a lot of money getting things going. There's all those ties from Intervale. Years later, I was checking out a septic system on a local development, and I saw a right of way drawn across the back of the yard. And what the hell is this for? Why is there a right of way for a water line across this house that's nowhere near the railroad? And then it occurred to me that this house was near the Artist Brook, and there was a little reservoir at the top of Thompson Road, Artist Brook, that probably, I think the date on this was like 1872, just before the railroad originally opened in 74. And I'm guessing that was probably the water source, because obviously we didn't have, we weren't pumping water. There wasn't a water system in the middle of North Conway like there is now. That probably was the gravity supply, particularly for this particular section of railroad, because it was just before the climb up to the Fabians. That's where that was, the Thompson Road, right up beside Mount Cranmore. Up in there, there's a stream and then a little bit of a reservoir, and I suspect that's what it was for. What started, I thought, would be a 3-day project stretched into several months. I made all the signs. I had a little sign business at the time, so I chose a typeface that I liked and made the signs that I think they've all been replaced since. And I can tell how old a picture is because when I see that sign there with too little space between the train rides and the bottom of the sign, I know it was my original sign. The guy who replaced it set it up a little better, and that is gold leaf. And the gold leaf is fine, but the sign is still, the blue is still kind of fading. Ron Johnson, I don't know whether you folks know Ron, but he spent the summer painting that building. All the time I was working there, he was somewhere on a scaffold or wherever painting all of those, every piece of gingerbread on that building. I even got a chance to build a new septic system long before there was a town sewer, which there is now. Um, and I did get a chance to make a trip all the way to Conway Village with my little skid steer. Um, it was tricky. If it was raining and we were on a banked curve, my back wheels would tend to slip off, and I have to climb back up and get the flange wheels set back down on the rails to keep me on track, literally. Um, um, when they were getting ready to start up 47, they had no source of a blower to get the coal started. I had a blower that was from my brother's laundry dry cleaning machines, and I lent that to them, and that was what started the first fire in 47 when that came back to life. Um, I think it was that night when that came to life that Dave Penny's daughter was in a very white party dress, and I still have the image of her climbing into that very black locomotive as it was being fired off for the first time. Dave Penny was the original the original engineer. That image still sticks in my mind. That's what you know now as 747. The first trip that locomotive made to Conway was with a bunch of kids that I had grabbed from the campground that I was building that my cousin owned on Route 16 in Conway. Um, our job was to lean out the windows and cut the brush so it wouldn't smack the passengers in their face. That obviously has been cleared back substantially. And coincidentally, there have been several fires set by the train just this past week, including 7 acres that evacuated one of the motels. I don't know whether they had a hot box or what it was, but it's so dry. It didn't take much to get this going. But yeah, it evacuated I think the Hampton Inn. Um, these photos, all the black and white photos, were taken by a very good friend of mine uh, who was Carol Reed's catalog photographer. Coincidentally, Carol Reed was one of the owners of the railroad at that time. Dwight's partner, I think Dwight being a third. And the bricks from the old inside outhouse, those are now, I looked at that again this morning, that's in perfect condition. I did that in 1974. Those bricks were all stood on edge. They were hard bricks. Unfortunately, there's a ramp over much of them, but they're still plenty visible. And Cal Reed himself happened to be on hand that day, and he explained to me what to grout them with. So I dedicate that walk to Cal Reed in his memory. That's what it looks like today. And it's coincidental, very coincidental, that this obituary for Dwight was in yesterday and today's paper. The Conway Daily Sun publishes Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and this was in yesterday's paper. I remain a very good friend with Dwight. He gave me a lifetime pass, which I lost when somebody stole my wallet, and I'm not sure the new owner would even know who I was anyway. So, I've learned enough about the train that I'm pretty comfortable, even if I don't get to ride on it now. But that's all I've got. If anybody's got any questions, this is maybe like watching paint dry for some of you, but for me, it brings back a lot of very fond memories. Over and out.
You mentioned this is meant.
You want to be on the camera?
Oh, I don't have to be on the camera. Rush, you mentioned Ron Johnson. He is one of our members still.
He is. Okay. I had an idea he might be. So he remembers that summer, I'm sure. It was pretty much the whole summer. He was, I don't know how many gallons of paint, but yeah, he's probably a little older now.
And as you know, he's done a few programs from us because he's a great photographer.
Yeah. So did he have many photos from the old days when this was all happening?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to see them.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, when I went in the station this morning, just to kind of reminisce, I saw a picture that showed my little skid steer in color. I think it was moving one of the coal cars. I think the way they dumped the coal at that time was there was a trestle just south of the golf course. They could back a dump truck in underneath and open the bottom of the coal car and dump that in, and then the because they had no other way to load it into the coal bin apparently. I think that's what happened at first. I have no idea what's been done since, but and I know 47 doesn't run nearly as much as it used to, just as well, because you could smell it over the whole valley. But the sound of it just was stirring. I could always tell. I mean, there's nothing like the sound of that steam whistle.
Does anyone here in the room have any questions?
Yeah, this is my first visit. I had a question about the station. Who built that?
Well, it was B&M.
It's Boston, Maine. All right.
Yeah. So I'm assuming, like I said, with the cobblestone in the front, they actually B&M had a local quarry making cobblestones. And if anybody ever wants to see that quarry, you go to Tin Mountain and you go down one of the paths that coincidentally Walter Lancaster and I made, and you can see that quarry. There's piles and piles and piles of slab there, but apparently that's where they made the cobblestones that went to Boston and probably a lot of other places, and probably right there down there into North Conway.
Well, that answers my question. I was wondering if these stations were built privately or that the railroad owned them and built them.
I'm sure somebody knows that. I would think Ron would know it. But yeah, I mean, this was all B&M up until the time Dwight took it over.
All right, thanks.
Wasn't that the Portsmouth, Great Falls, and Conway Railroad?
That doesn't sound right, but it might be. I don't know that goes. The train still runs. There's a huge gravel pit in Ossipee, a couple of towns south, that the sand for the Boston Sand and Gravel comes from. I think a lot of that went down to the Big Dig, and those trains still run there. They cross Route 16, and they go down. I believe they go through Durham on the same tracks that the Downeaster runs. I don't know where they join, but that does still run. Obviously, there's no freight coming into North Conway. Those tracks have been asphalted over in many places, although I hear some rumblings that the railroad may be doing something with them. The local doesn't sound happy about it because I guess they'll be infringing on their territory. But the Main Central, of course, those tracks are all intact, and that is how I guess Conway Scenic gets new rolling stock. So there's the equipment that they have now. I mean, we had nothing back in 1974, but there's ballast regulators and there's tie replacers and there's all kinds of stuff sitting on the side track up in North Conway. By the way, I got the opportunity to help set the Frog, which is just the north end, just about 100 feet past the north end of the station in North Conway, for the runaround, because the idea was to be able to make that runaround as close to the station as possible, so that the patrons could see it. And as I say, that was just about 100 feet. There was a siding there, a second track, but it would have gone much farther north to have run around for their trips back and forth to Conway. So that was changed in 1974. I don't know of any other changes in track since that time.
So does anyone else in the room have any questions?
Can you hear me? The track has been put back in. The switch is still there, so track by the freight house is now where they load the notch train and so forth. So put back in about a month and a half ago.
Oh, it was removed?
He said it was removed. He asked.
No, it's back in now. It was where you people did it way back then, and the switches are still there, but they just added another switch and connected that track back into the main line, second line there.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that just happened. Yeah, I fortunately had a set of forks for my skid steer so I could handle ties and rail and anything else that Emmons had in store for me.
Does anyone else online have any questions or anything to add? Well, Russ, if no one else has any questions, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for that great presentation.
I was wondering, are there any 470 members up here in the Conway area?
There is Ross, but I not knowing off the top of my head, because Jordan, my son, are the membership secretaries. But I know there is some up there. I just can't think of them off the top of my head.
Yeah, Dwight sold all of his model trains, I guess. He had, I never got a chance to see it, but I guess he had a pretty fantastic display up at his house. So they've gone someplace else. And there's still a model railroad club operating in the freight houses there?
Yes, that's still going, and I don't know if you knew or not, Russ. Bill Willis bought all his photos.
Well, Dwight's photos.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I didn't know if you knew that or not, but he bought that probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the opportunity to share this.
One last call. I don't see Jack yet. Anybody else in the room or online that wanted any more questions for Russ? All right. With that being said, we'll see you again this time next month.